because at that point you should hire another full-time person. So
Right.
that percentage has to follow as well.
Yeah, although 75%.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, I'm in the same field like you. I'm the department.
Yeah.
And so it's me, and it's nobody else. And I do the hiring of my adjuncts and stuff. It don't go to a committee. They bring their applications into me, and I look at the applications and walk them through, and I make the decision if I want to hire them or not. If I hire them, they
You're
don't
either
do
lucky
it.
or you're not, depending on how you look at it.
But I can get the ones that I want and get rid of the
Right.
ones that I don't, and they don't.
Yeah, we don't have that luxury at all.
Yeah.
It's gotta go through HR. You know, and if for some reason I define that position too restricting in some way, shape, or form, which you never know what it's gonna be, I may cancel out perfectly qualified people.
Yeah.
So. Go ahead.
Question for just throwing it out, is there any advantage to having a established curriculum as opposed to hiring an adjunct that comes in and has to learn to teach, learn classroom management, and prepare content for it? If the content was prepared, would that address any of the issues at some level?
I think it does, because when a new instructor comes in to teach one of the classes that I have, I will work with them to make sure they have access to all my information, and they're free to change as they need to, or not use any of it, whatever they want, or use it verbatim to teach from. And so they have that option, but I realize it's probably not universal. So I've taken away that barrier, but it's still, it doesn't seem to be something that has helped. And most people who tend to be the better instructors, they're going to want to take that information and make it their own anyway, because I can only teach what I'm comfortable with, and that means I got to make it my own.
Can I follow up on that, Rich? We had an example at Lane, not Lance, Lane. We had a guy that came in to teach lighting classes, and the first thing he did was he came in and met with me, and then he asked me if I would share my curriculum with him, and of course I did. So he came in, and he wasn't even notified that he was going to teach. It wasn't even confirmed that he was going to teach the class until 3 weeks before it started. And it turned out that I gave him all my material. It was a lighting class, and he used that. Plus, he made his own. So he put in a little extra work on his own. He was happy with the pay,
Yeah.
and he was a public employee. He worked for the local utility, the local electric utility, and it worked out well for him. That because then, and he had never taught before either, but because he had those PowerPoints and the homework assignments and that syllabus with an outline, he had a pretty good framework to start with. So. He had to learn how to be a teacher, but at least he had a pretty good outline, And I think if we can supply an adjunct with something like that, then the amount of time that it makes it easier for them to say, yes, I'll do it.
Well, I think this kind of goes back to what Brian Reyes document has available to all of us here, which are all those courses available through the BAS Center website, that a lot of that barrier has been knocked down if you just want to take that and run with it.
That's right, yeah.
So there is that benefit. There is that benefit. Brian's ready and available to help you out with it, right? So that's another function that the BAS Center can provide, is knock down some of that initial barrier to have that adjunct come on board and not have to be too worried about that aspect.
One of the, our welding program changed a couple of years ago, how they were doing business immensely. They were getting like 3 or 4 students a quarter. I mean, they were all, the program was all but dead. And they changed how they did the program completely. Instead of having set lecture times and lab times and everything where people had to be there, they changed it up. They put a lot of their lectures and reading materials and everything up into our e-learning environment. At that time it was Angel, now it's Blackboard. And made that portion students' responsibility. and offered just plain lab time. They would have the welding lab had X number of people that it could handle at any given time. They had 2 or 3 instructors wandering around the entire time. But there was, if you wanted to come in and do stick welding, you did stick welding. If you wanted to do gas metal arc welding, you did that. If you know, so it was completely open lab time. So if you had 8 hours on Tuesday to come in and you just wanted to weld to your heart's content, you could do that. Is it possible that our industry could adopt something similar to that? Where we have a lot of pre-lecture online, a lot of pre-prep, and then we just have to do supervised lab time effectively, and obviously someone to run the grades online.
Right.
You know, that's a good question. We tried a flipped model to an extent, like you're describing, for a little while. And we found out, I mean, we're an open access institution. It's a lot of the meaning, I think, in the coursework has to be delivered, not just the coursework itself, but also students are going to pattern off of your behavior and your insight into certain topics. So I think you can do that to an extent, but we kind of pulled back somewhat from that, because then the students would come, those that you're impacting who are poor learners or don't know how to prepare, don't know how to study, and then when they come to class or a laboratory, and they don't have that full meaning, and you still have to back up and catch them and, you know, clarify everything, it's like the flipped model concept breaks down somewhat at that point. You know, if they were all strong learners, I think it would work really well. If you could get a whole set or cohort of really strong independent learners, I think it would work better. But what we ended up with, at least when I left the institution, was a lot of the content, actually most all the content, was available with links and or we used some avatars. We used Angel at that time. I know we're going back to Blackboard now. And then supplementary materials were there as well. I would say maybe 1/3 of my students were able to independently learn successfully and come ready for that extra, you know, meaning or clarification. And then most of them were not in that category.
Much more than hands-on.
Yeah, exactly. They would get that meaning only from the classroom. When you take that away, it was another thing I want to say is students really rail against that, we found, because we had the guy that developed that flip model classroom come to our campus for, you remember, Gerald, for a faculty day or something, a whole day we spent listening to that gentleman. And some of us tried to adopt some of those models, but it was more problematic, I think, than what we had anticipated when we started trying to do it. The students really do not like that because, you know, a lot of students come to the classroom expecting you're getting paid to teach me everything I need to know. You got to break through that barrier first of all, so they don't feel like they're getting their money's worth because you're not serving it up on a silver platter, right? So you got that challenge, and then beyond that, you got the learners who are just not strong independently, so that they just won't do the work. You can say, okay, well, they won't be successful anyways. But my thought there, having thought about this a lot, is it's part of our job as instructors and teachers also to inspire them and inspire those soft skills, that development as well, you know. So I think that's why I'm kind of have a mixed feeling on that flip classroom.
Well, and I have two feelings about that. One is, I don't think that I would do well with an online type of format. I tried some of the earlier versions of that back in the 90s, and the fact was I just didn't complete the class because I lacked the motivation to do that. So from my feeling, I don't think it would be valuable for a lot of students, and it takes that special student to want to go and learn that stuff on their own. The other part of that is I look at my curriculum that I've had for 5.5, 6 years now, and it's all been accelerated format, 8-week shots, right? So a student's supposed to be doing a lot of work on their own. Guess what? It's not happening. And I'm taking all the classes, I took 2 or 3 classes this past year, put them into the full semester. Starting in the fall, all the classes are now going to be all semester long. So we flipped that around because of that lack of ability or interest on the students' part to do this stuff on their own. So that's been my experience.
And, just piggyback off of that, I think from having taught for the last 25 years, this type of student has changed, because we used to have what we call individualized programming. Ryan came to our program very rapidly, and he transitioned right into a job, even maybe before you finish, right?
After the first term, yeah.
Yeah, and that work, I have a whole list of students who are successful. One student we know, he ended up owning a company that eventually we're doing $28 million a year in sales. And he was a guy that kind of trekked through the program. But now we're not getting the same type of student. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, but I think we have to change our approach to delivering the information so that we can inspire those who just need that face-to-face instruction.
Well, we do, all of our classes are hybrid, and frankly, I wouldn't do it any other way. I find our attrition rate has not changed one bit from when we were face-to-face to now when we're hybrid. And the stuff that's online, it's not just text that they're reading, there's videos. We just bought a new video camera, and this summer I'm going to be making tons of videos on everything I can think about, and that's all going to be put up online as well.
Yeah,
So
can I follow on that real quick? I
then I'm
agree
going
with
to change
that,
the conversation.
with what you just said. All our classes too were hybrid. And I think it's that balance point, how much do you require them to learn at home versus how much is just supplementary hybrid instruction for those students that want to, really shoot for the moon,
Well, I tell you one thing that I did that I almost had a revolt on my hands. I told them, here's what we're going to do. We're going to meet every other week. So we'll meet the first week, and we'll meet the third week and the fifth week. Well, about halfway into the semester, the student said, I don't like this. We don't see you for 2 weeks. So I said, all right, well, we'll go back to meeting every week. And there was just too much of a disconnect. That time was just too long. And the reason I did it was I was in the middle of my master's degree, and that's the way we did it. We met every other week, and we all loved it but we were motivated.
Right.
We were obviously weren't.
And so I think it kind of takes us back to looking at this recruitment piece and trying to see if we can mix and match the instructors according to who we have on staff already and try to pair them up. And it sounds like that's going to be a difficult task to do if we're looking at going more virtual. So
I was just going to say, Kellogg Community College in Battle Creek, Michigan, Shane Bresson is their full-time HVAC faculty. As I'm talking about him, I think I should get him picked up this group. He's been there, I think, 2 years. Phenomenal guy, took over this program. Anyways, their whole model for is open entry, open exit, and module-based with an open lab format. He staffs that lab about 40 hours a week, and students come in. He's got, I went to his advisory committee meeting a couple months back, they've got right around 100 students, and he's doing that with one full-time guy and 2 adjunct instructors.
can you explain this a little bit more for me?
So the way they run their program, and this is how they do all their occupational programs, and they've been doing it for about 25 years. So it's got some longevity and it's proven to work. A student signs up for a module, and a module could be anywhere from a quarter credit to 2 or 3 credits. And they sign up for it. There's some parts of it that may require them to go to an LMS system, maybe Tooling U, something like that, where they're seeing some type of instruction online. There may be some type of reading assignment they have to do with it. And then they come into the lab, their lab setting, which is their classroom and lab all in one, and they work with Shane basically one-on-one. From talking to Shane, the biggest drawback is he goes, well, sometimes I may give the same lecture, 25 times in 1 week. If there's 2 guys there about the same place, I'll, hook them together. But he also works with almost every one of his students one-on-one. And then they come into the lab. his square footage is probably only twice the size of this room, maybe a little bit bigger than that. But because he's got students coming in 1s and 2s and 3s, he doesn't have 25 furnaces, he has 3. He doesn't have, you know, so his whole area just got more condensed. They're like 75% employer sponsored, so some type of apprenticeship slash, you know, continued education for people already working. About 25% of their students are, you know, students paying to go through the program. It's a really cool model in the state of Michigan. Everybody talks about it, and everybody says like that's a really cool thing, but nobody else has pulled the trigger like Kellogg did and said this is how we're going to offer it. Their lab's open, like I said, Shane's there about 40 hours a week. It's open 5 days of the week. Shane's there mostly during the day, and then it's open 2 or 3 nights a week with some adjuncts staffing it. And like I said, they're doing about, so our program is not quite double their size, and we've got 1 full-time and about 10 adjuncts trying to teach the same number of students. So if you're talking about not having enough adjuncts, maybe it's the way we offer it and we become more
Yeah.
strategic.
It also sounds like it, you know, from a recruiting standpoint, will help to alleviate that feeling of, I'm coming from industry and I don't know how to teach.
Right.
You're going to have a full-time person in the area with you, so you can always have that interaction, and maybe it does more of that technical hands-on stuff with the adjunct, like you were thinking about, and be able to utilize that.
It's
It's an interesting
pretty
concept.
cool concept.
Yeah. Okay, all right, so recruiting inducements, is anybody seeing where the college is somehow giving some of inducement, financial, or otherwise, for them to come and teach?
We just approved a new contract that had 20% lower wages, so no. And we don't give credit for anything but education. So no journeyman card, no, you know, license, and it's a huge problem.
Wow.
A guy teaching in our aviation maintenance program can give people licenses to maintain airplanes, and we're looking at it from a college perspective going, oh, he's got a high school degree, let's pay him for his high school degree. And he's literally one of 7 people in the state that can say, you are approved to be a mechanic of airplanes.
Yeah, I mean, there is that issue. I ran into some of the issue when I was hired. Just you run into this block that they don't understand or appreciate experience.
So what our college has asked us to do in areas is say, well, what's the equivalent of an associate's degree? What's the equivalent of a bachelor's degree? What's the equivalent of a master's degree? And if there's anybody in this network that's got that for HVAC or building automation or anything, I'd love to see that.
Our college does it as a flat equivalency and experience. Typically, if it's an associate's degree, the equivalent is 4 years work experience, bachelor's 6 years work experience, master's 8 years work experience.
Oh,
I've heard some similar numbers, you know, that's 6 to 8 years of experience for a bachelor's degree equivalent.
I mean, you can follow the ASHRAE guidelines for getting a certification test, you know, at a certain level. They have the same thing. They have 2 years, a 2-year education, 6 years experience. You can test for the commissioning, you know, test.
Yeah.
So they have kind of an equivalency of years of experience for years of education. You know, 4 years education, 4 years
Yeah.
experience.
Well, yeah, I suppose there's probably quite a few, if you get license or certifications,
Yeah.
there's probably a lot of examples.
But it gives that type of breakdown.
But to get somebody to get college to buy off on it, it's kind of hard.
I've experienced discrimination in universities and colleges.
And there's a lot of education discrimination in the industry, so it goes both ways.
Well, any other thoughts on recruitment of faculty? Somebody see OES?
I don't think it was to your comment.
Oh, okay. So, and just kind of wrapping this up, I think we need to look at those companies that are doing well that we respect, and see if we can't find people within those companies to do it. See if we can't recruit. That's one area, and there's a lot of other discussion we just had that might help us out with trying to find faculty. Yes, I'm a firm believer of starting to look within, and then, if not from within, go out. So. Any other party thoughts?
I think maybe we need to start looking at retention as more of a recruiting tool than just getting people to come in.
Yeah.
Because I know at our college, we have a revolving door. People come in, they're excited, and then the enthusiasm goes away,
Yeah.
and they're gone.
So
we're
why
constantly-
why does the enthusiasm go away?
Well, you hire, for example, you hire an adjunct, comes in, works two or three semesters, and then because of budget cuts, you ask that adjunct to become a lab assistant. So now you've reduced their pay, and they don't get the number of hours. Just like we were talking about the healthcare law that has come out. So you reduce their pay, they're rushing from their regular 9 to 5 to get there. They live, 50 miles away. What's the benefit of coming in?
I quit my last part-time teaching gig for that reason.
For that very reason.
Yeah, you spend as much time traveling back and forth as you do in the classroom, and it's just not valuable. In fact, I told MATC that I won't work another part-time because
It's just not working.
not enough help.
Right. It's just not.
We got a few years.
So yeah, you're enthused when you come because you see this vision of helping someone up to be economically stable,
Yeah.
and then you get burnt out, and
Yeah.
you just leave.
I know that feeling.
Yeah.
I've experienced it myself many times over the past 6 years. So. All right, well, we ready for dinner?
Well, not quite that it's set up yet
Okay.
outside, but it's about 12 minutes until I guess they're just putting the setting up now. One thing, these discussions are always so rich. Does anybody have, I think we talked about this in Memphis, about capturing and continuing this, because we have such a good group, whether that's some kind of forum, or whether that's some kind of ongoing webinars, or whether it's part of the Best Center site that we have. But continuing this, because it's great discussion, and then it's just too long to wait another year or till another workshop sometimes.
Yeah, and then we're in the same boat with the, we talked about with the advisory committees. We gotta keep it alive.
Right, so I think we threw this out last year, we came up with some good ideas. But any ideas to continue kind of the forum, not just for the discussions, but best practices and instructional methods and lessons and all the stuff that we're learning as we start off our programs. Just throw it out there.
Emails, phone calls, and webinar invitations, and just keep the juices flowing. Keep in
So walk
contact
through
and
different
touch.
ways to go at it.
Maybe Google Groups or something like that to, a place where you can post things and like our own kind of cloud thing for the group.
And that came up last year too. I think there was there were some people that either were not familiar with it or for some reason did not want to get on there. But I use Google Groups all the time and I love it for that very reason. How many people would use a Google Groups if we set one up?
I'd be willing to learn it.
Wasn't everybody
Yeah,
here?
that's okay.
Also, you can do LinkedIn groups. I'm in the LinkedIn group with HVAC Excellence. So that's another thing. And LinkedIn is a good recruiting source too, because you can always send out job opportunities on LinkedIn, and they'll send it out to people that may be looking for jobs that they want to do.
That would provide it.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this too, because I get this way too. You go away from this, you get busy with other things. You know, it's just like you got this long laundry list of things you have to accomplish each day. You're like, oh, I'll circle back later, and later never comes. So what would be like a hook that would get you back and get you to spend 5 minutes to contribute back to the Best Center group? What would be some of those triggers that would, if you saw something from us, it'd be like, oh yeah, other than, I know you said webinar. Or
Contacts, you know, like emails. What brought me here is a phone call from Ted just checking up on me. Got me thinking about the whole thing. So, just, you get busy, you get wrapped up in what you're doing, and you just forget until you hear from somebody, and especially if it's something that you care about. You're like, oh yeah, I need to pay attention to this.
So those phone calls are valuable.
Phone calls, email, text.
You think phone calls would be the most personal, that personal touch might be the most effective way to reach out?
Phone calls are very good, you know, emails, you know, if it's from somebody from a group, will work real well too.
Does,
I mean, I hit the delete key if I get an email from somebody I don't know, but if it's somebody I know, I look it up.
That's why you never responded.
a really itchy delete key finger.
But like Saturday, when everybody does their presentations, if we were like, oh man, that was great, I'd like to somehow find a place in the cloud where I could go back and pull that presentation that someone does on Saturday. Like, do we have any sort of like space or home for like this group where, what is it?
Like a Dropbox?
Yeah, something like that, yeah, like that. And then, so let's say one of us creates a really neat lesson or something in one of our courses, we could post it, and maybe it would, if we post it, it would just send a quick little email or something to folks to say, hey, if you're interested. In other words, you wouldn't be forced to go and look at the lesson, but it would be that little spark of, oh, there's something in that place in the cloud where...
Larry, can you answer that at all? Do we have something set up already?
The site does have a blogging feature because it's built on WordPress, okay? But we really need to, again, kind of figure out all the pieces that go together to make that a really effective kind of group communication tool. I don't think it's going to take a whole lot, but yeah, you know, so there's some refinement to be done there. You know, I would certainly welcome any of you to become part of a blog. You know, again, you know, get the kind of get the juices flowing for the entire group. Again, it kind of comes down to bandwidth, right? Because I'm willing to bet, you know, you're part of a LinkedIn group and this, that, and the other. So.
Yeah, well, I guess what would make it simpler?
and the LinkedIn group, the group that I'm with, anybody that posts anything on that, in that group, it automatically sends me an email. When I open up my email, it shows the chat,
Yeah, that's
and
true,
I
it
gotta
does.
click on it, and I'm in the group already, and
Yeah.
that brings that to the group already.
Yeah.
So that may be a good idea to do is to link in.
So
Yeah,
they
and-
can put in PowerPoints or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, we have a LinkedIn page for the BAS Center. And it's really a matter of making sure that, again, we can manage these discussions so that way guys like me don't have to go hunting on a million different pages and sites to collect data.
You know, the one thing, like, as a co-PI, I mean, I'll just say it, I don't even go to the Best Center website as much as I should, really. I don't, because the first thing I do every day is get in Gmail and go through that. It's like, that's something it's a routine almost for me. It almost seems like to go to a different site is like out of your routine, is more intentional, like you're looking for something very specific. So if we were to set up like a Google Groups or something, because so many people are on Gmail already, would that be something that would be compatible with the Best Center website down the road? Like if we were doing a blast to everybody, could we pick that up somehow or link it to the Best Center website? Just to, I don't expect an answer right now, but do you think that's a possibility? Yeah. Because how many people use Gmail on a regular basis? I know I use that quite a few.
Yeah.
You're
You know.
saying Google knows.
Yeah, no, he kind of. Right, I think the caution against, or at least something to consider about any kind of Google-related group or service or product is that, at least what I've experienced, is that to get that seamless integration where I can just click on the link and go to a Google Doc, you have to have a Gmail address. And there's some people who are adamant that they don't want to be part of the Google kind of monopoly. So, you know.
Well, I think one of my biggest problems is I forgot whatever password I had.
As a member of the BAS Center, because as we all have multiple passwords, whatever one I used, I probably had to change it.
I bet I can
At
tell you
some
what your
point,
password
because
is.
with age, I just like throw my hands up and go, no, it's too much.
So a password file or software you can use, it's a freeware thing. Some guy developed it years ago, and you just go get it. It's called Passkeeper. So just Google Passkeeper, and you'll find it. You can download it. You can save like I think 100 or so different things on it. Then, if you want to, you just go make another one, and you have a store. I got two.
You have to
One
create a password for that app, though.
Make it the name of your favorite beer, and it's okay.
So we don't know.
I've lost everything.
Ted, you got covered.
Be really careful with those password keepers. One of the big names just got hacked earlier this week.
Oh, this is something besides on your computer.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. One of the big password, I can't remember which one it was. It was not Passkey, but one of the,
Passkeeper, yeah.
Passkeeper. It was one of the big companies that does exactly that kind of thing. Got hacked.
Mine's on the computer.
I think it was over the weekend.
Or if they had to go to every computer that has it on it.
You don't roll the dice.
Not necessarily.
It's
just like It's just like every app.
Well, this, yeah, they would have to go on it, all my computers to get it.
Looked like a phone number, but really the first 6 digits of that phone number is what.
All right. Well, I think we're getting really close to dinner.
Okay.
It's probably just setting up, it's probably 10 minutes.
10 minutes yet?
Maybe there's something else.
Just open it.
That's where to get.
Well, they have.
Let's relax at center.
I saw that.
Do that?
Yeah. Or,
Hey, Matt.
you know, Brian?
No, we haven't.
One thing I'd like to do is just go over the PowerPoint template briefly.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Sure.
okay, why don't we go and do that?
That's
Because
the right of new thing.
you all should have received it. If anyone didn't get it, let me know. Okay?
When did we get it?
Moments ago.
5 minutes.